As a retired teacher, I had always believed in the power of knowledge and the importance of family. But when my own son, influenced by his manipulative wife, tried to force me into a nursing home to gain control of my assets, I knew I had to take matters into my own hands. Using the wisdom and resourcefulness I had gained over a lifetime, I secretly transferred ownership of my property and confronted them with the truth of their betrayal. This is the story of how I outsmarted those who sought to take advantage of me, and learned the hard lesson that sometimes the people closest to us can be the ones who hurt us the most. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you're listening from in the comments. The sun was just beginning to peek through the curtains of my bedroom when I heard a knock at the door. I glanced at the clock on my nightstand, squinting to make out the numbers. 7:30 a.m. Who could be visiting at this hour? I pushed myself out of bed, my joints creaking in protest. At 67 years old, I was no spring chicken anymore. But I refused to let age slow me down. I had always prided myself on my sharp mind and my ability to stay active, both physically and mentally. I made my way downstairs, tying the belt of my robe as I went. When I opened the front door, I was surprised to see my son, Michael, standing on the porch. He hadn't visited in months, and the grim expression on his face told me that this was no social call. "Michael," I said, trying to keep my voice light. "What brings you here so early?" He stepped inside without waiting for an invitation, his shoulders tense and his jaw clenched. "We need to talk, Dad." I followed him into the living room, a sense of unease growing in the pit of my stomach. Michael had always been a difficult dild, prone to mood swings and impulsive behavior. But in recent years, since he had married his wife Sarah, he had become even more distant and unpredictable. "What's this about?" I asked, lowering myself into my favorite armchair. Michael paced back and forth in front of the fireplace, his hands clasped behind his back. "It's about your living situation, Dad. Sarah and I have been talking, and we think it's time for you to consider moving into a nursing home." I stared at him, shock and disbelief washing over me in waves. A nursing home? Why on earth would I need to move into a nursing home? He stopped pacing and turned to face me, his expression a mix of pity and frustration. "Look, Dad, we both know you're not getting any younger, and with Mom gone, it's just not safe for you to be living alone anymore." I felt a flare of anger at the mention of my late wife, Margaret. She had been gone for 2 years now, taken from us by a sudden heart attack. But even in her absence, I had never once doubted my ability to take care of myself. "I'm perfectly capable of living on my own, Michael," I said, my voice calm but firm. "I've been doing it for 2 years now, and I have no intention of stopping anytime soon." He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "It's not just about your safety, Dad. It's about your quality of life. Wouldn't you be happier in a place where you have people to socialize with? Activities to keep you busy?" I shook my head, a bitter laugh escaping my lips. "You mean a place where I'm locked away and forgotten, left to rot while you and Sarah live it up with my money?" Michael's face flushed with anger, his hands clenching into fists at his sides. "That's not what this is about, Dad. We're just trying to do what's best for you." But even as he spoke the words, I could see the lie in his eyes. This had nothing to do with my well-being, and everything to do with their own greed and selfishness. They wanted me out of the way, wanted to get their hands on my assets and my property, and I would be damned if I let that happen. I stood up, my body trembling with rage and betrayal. "Get out of my house, Michael, and don't come back until you're ready to treat me with the respect I deserve." He opened his mouth to argue, but something in my expression must have stopped him. With a final frustrated shake of his head, he turned and stalked out of the room, slamming the front door behind him. I sank back into my chair, my heart racing and my mind reeling. I had always known that Michael and Sarah were selfish, that they cared more about money and status than they did about family. But I had never imagined that they would stoop to this level, that they would try to force me out of my own home and into a nursing home, just so they could get their hands on my assets. And in that moment, as I sat there in the silence of my empty house, I knew that I had to do something. I had to find a way to protect myself, to outsmart them at their own game. For I was John Anderson, a retired teacher and a father, a man who had spent his entire life fighting for what was right and just. And I would be damned if I let my own son and daughter-in-law take everything I had worked so hard for, everything that rightfully belonged to me. With a sense of grim determination, I pushed myself out of my chair and made my way to my study. I had work to do, plans to make and strategies to devise, and I wouldn't rest until I had found a way to beat them at their own game, to show them that I was not a man to be trifled with, no matter how old or frail they might think me to be. For I was a fighter, a survivor, and I would not go down without a fight. Not now, not ever. The next few days passed in a blur of activity and planning. I threw myself into the task of protecting my assets, of finding a way to outsmart Michael and Sarah before they could make their next move. I spent long hours in my study, poring over legal documents and financial statements, searching for any loophole or technicality that I could use to my advantage. I had always been a diligent saver, investing my money wisely over the years and building up a substantial nest egg. But now, with the vultures circling, I knew I had to be even more careful, even more strategic in my thinking. My first step was to meet with my lawyer, a sharp-witted woman named Emily, who had been a former student of mine. She listened carefully as I explained the situation, her brow furrowed in concentration. "They can't force you into a nursing home against your will, John," she said, her voice firm and reassuring. "But they can make your life very difficult if they choose to pursue guardianship or power of attorney." I nodded, my heart sinking at the thought. "So what can I do? How can I protect myself?" Emily leaned forward, her eyes glinting with determination. "We start by transferring your assets into a trust, one that you control completely. That way, even if they do manage to gain guardianship, they won't be able to touch your money or your property." I felt a flicker of hope at her words, a sense that perhaps there was a way out of this nightmare after all. "And the house? Can we protect that too?" She smiled, a fierce and predatory thing. "Leave that to me. I have a few tricks up my sleeve that will make it very difficult for them to lay claim to your home." Over the next few weeks, we worked tirelessly to put our plan into action. I signed document after document, transferring my savings and investments into a complex web of trusts and holding companies. We drafted a new will, one that left everything to a charitable foundation I had long supported, with strict instructions that the money be used to fund scholarships for underprivileged students. And as for the house, Emily had a stroke of genius. "We'll transfer ownership to a life estate," she explained, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "That means you'll retain the right to live in the house for the rest of your life, but upon your death, it will pass to the charitable foundation as well." I felt a rush of gratitude and admiration for this woman, this former student who had become my fiercest ally and defender. With her help, I knew I could face whatever challenges lay ahead, could weather any storm that Michael and Sarah might try to unleash. But even as I felt a sense of relief and empowerment, I couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal that lingered in the back of my mind. Michael was my son, my own flesh and blood. How could he turn against me like this? How could he try to take everything I had worked so hard for? I thought back to the day he was born, the way his tiny hand had curled around my finger as I held him for the first time. I remembered teaching him to ride a bike, helping him with his homework, watching with pride as he graduated from college and started his own career. And now, to think that he would try to force me into a nursing home, to think that he cared more about money than he did about his own father. It was a bitter pill to swallow, a harsh reality that I had never wanted to face. But face it I would, with all the strength and determination that I had honed over a lifetime. I would not let them win, would not let them take what was rightfully mine. And so, with Emily by my side, and a fire burning in my belly, I prepared for the battle ahead. I knew it would not be easy, knew that there would be challenges and setbacks along the way. But I also knew that I had the truth on my side, had the knowledge and the resourcefulness to outsmart them at every turn. And I would not rest until I had secured my future, until I had shown them once and for all that I was not a man to be trifled with, no matter how old or frail they might think me to be. For I was John Anderson, a retired teacher and a father, a man who had spent his entire life fighting for what was right and just, And I would be damned if I let my own son and daughter-in-law take that away from me, not without a fight. So bring it on, Michael and Sarah. Bring on your lies and your manipulations, your greed and your selfishness. I will be ready for you. We'll meet you on the battlefield of your own making. And in the end, when the dust settles and the smoke clears, it will be I who emerges victorious, I who stands tall and proud in the face of your betrayal. For I am a survivor, a fighter, and I will not be broken. Not now, not ever. The day of reckoning arrived on a cool, crisp morning in early October. I sat at my kitchen table, sipping a cup of coffee and watching the leaves dance in the wind outside my window. It was a beautiful day, the kind of day that made you feel alive and invigorated, ready to take on the world. But for me, it was a day of confrontation, a day of facing the harsh realities of betrayal and deceit. I had invited Michael and Sarah over for a family meeting, a chance to lay all our cards on the table and have it out once and for all. They arrived promptly at 10 a.m., their faces grim and their postures tense. I greeted them at the door, my own expression carefully neutral, my emotions held tightly in check. "Come in," I said, stepping aside to let them pass. "We have a lot to discuss." We settled into the living room, Michael and Sarah on the sofa, me in my favorite armchair. For a moment, no one spoke, the silence heavy and oppressive. Finally, Michael cleared his throat, his voice tight with anger. "What's this all about, Dad? Why did you call us here?" I leaned forward, my elbows resting on my knees, my gaze steady and unwavering. "I called you here because I know what you've been planning, Michael. I know about your scheme to force me into a nursing home, to take control of my assets and my property." Sarah's eyes widened in shock, her hand flying to her mouth. "I don't know what you're talking about, John. We would never do something like that." But I could see the lie in her eyes, the way her gaze darted nervously to Michael, seeking his support. And I knew in that moment that I had been right all along, that my own son and daughter-in-law had been conspiring against me, plotting to take everything I had worked so hard for. "Don't lie to me, Sarah," I said, my voice calm but firm. "I've seen the documents, the emails between you and your lawyer. You've been planning this for months, trying to find a way to gain control of my finances and my estate." Michael's face flushed with anger, his fists clenching at his sides. "This is ridiculous, Dad. We're just trying to do what's best for you, to make sure you're taken care of in your old age." I laughed, a harsh and bitter sound. "Taken care of? Is that what you call it, Michael? Forcing me out of my own home? Taking away my independence and my dignity?" I stood up, my body trembling with rage and betrayal. "Well, I have news for you, son. I'm not going anywhere. I've taken steps to protect myself, to make sure that you and Sarah can never lay a hand on my assets or my property." Sarah's face paled, her eyes widening in fear. "What do you mean? What have you done?" I smiled, a cold and triumphant thing. "I've transferred everything into a trust, one that you have no control over. And as for the house, I've placed it in a life estate, ensuring that I can live here for the rest of my days, and that upon my death, it will pass to a charitable foundation, not to you." Michael's mouth fell open, his expression a mix of shock and fury. "You can't do this, Dad. You can't just cut us out like this." But I just shook my head, my resolve unwavering. "I can and I have, Michael. You brought this on yourself, with your greed and your selfishness. You thought you could take advantage of me, thought you could manipulate me into giving up everything I've worked for, but you were wrong." I stood tall and proud, my voice ringing out with the strength of my convictions. I am not a weak old man, to be pushed around and controlled. I am John Anderson, a father and a teacher, a man who has lived a life of integrity and purpose. And I will not let you or anyone else take that away from me. For a long moment, no one spoke, the weight of my words hanging heavy in the air. And then, slowly, Michael and Sarah stood up, their faces a mask of defeat and resignation. "This isn't over, Dad," Michael said, his voice low and menacing. "You can't just cut us out of your life like this." But I just smiled, a sad and knowing thing. I'm not cutting you out of my life, Michael. I'm simply protecting myself from your betrayal. If you want to be a part of my life, if you want to earn back my trust and my respect, then you'll have to do it on my terms, not yours. And with that, I turned and walked out of the room, leaving them to stew in their own anger and frustration. I knew that the road ahead would not be easy, that there would be more battles to come and more challenges to face. But I also knew that I had the strength and the resilience to weather any storm, to emerge victorious in the face of any adversity. For I was John Anderson, a survivor and a fighter, a man who had spent his entire life standing up for what was right and just. And I would not let my own son and daughter-in-law break me, would not let them take away the dignity and the independence that I had fought so hard to maintain. So let them come, with their lies and their manipulations, their greed and their selfishness. I would be ready for them, would meet them on the battlefield of their own making. And in the end, when the dust settled and the smoke cleared, it would be I who emerged victorious, I who stood tall and proud in the face of their betrayal. For I was a teacher, a father, and a man of honor. And I would not be broken, not by them, not by anyone. Not now, not ever. The weeks and months that followed were a time of healing and reflection, of coming to terms with the harsh realities of betrayal and the importance of self-preservation. I threw myself into my work, volunteering at the local community center and mentoring young students who reminded me so much of myself at their age. I found solace in the simple pleasures of life, in the beauty of a sunset, or the laughter of a dild. I rekindled old friendships and forged new ones, surrounding myself with people who valued me for who I was, not what I could give them. And slowly but surely, I began to heal all, to find a new sense of purpose and meaning in the aftermath of the storm. I knew that I could never fully trust Michael and Sarah again, that the wounds of their betrayal would always be a part of me. But I also knew that I had the strength and the resilience to move forward, to build a new life for myself that was not defined by their actions or their choices. I was more than just a father or a teacher, more than just a man with assets to be exploited. I was John Anderson, a human being with hopes and dreams, with a heart that could still love and a spirit that could still soar. And I would not let anyone, not even my own flesh and blood, take that away from me. As the months turned into years, I watched with a mix of sadness and pride as Michael and Sarah's lives began to unravel. Without my financial support, they struggled to maintain the lavish lifestyle they had grown accustomed to, the expensive cars and designer clothes and exotic vacations. They fought constantly, their arguments echoing through the walls of their once beautiful home. And eventually, inevitably, their marriage crumbled under the weight of their own greed and selfishness. I took no pleasure in their downfall, felt no sense of vindication or revenge. I knew all too well the pain of a broken family, the ache of a love that had turned to ashes in my hands. But I also knew that I could not save them from themselves, could not force them to see the error of their ways. They had chosen their path, had made their bed, and now they would have to lie in it. And so I focused on my own journey, on the road ahead that was filled with promise and possibility. I traveled the world, exploring new places and cultures, learning and growing in ways I had never thought possible. I took up painting and photography, discovering a talent for capturing the beauty and the mystery of the world around me. And I continued to give back to my community, to use my skills and my experience to make a difference in the lives of others. And through it all, I held fast to the lessons I had learned, to the truths that had been forged in the fires of adversity and pain. I knew that life was precious and fragile, that every moment was a gift to be cherished and celebrated. And I knew that the greatest wealth, the truest measure of success, lay not in the accumulation of material possessions or the opinions of others, but in the love and the laughter, the joy and the sorrow that made up the tapestry of a life well lived. For I was John Anderson, a man who had faced the darkness and emerged stronger and wiser for the journey. And as long as I had breath in my body and fire in my soul, I would continue to live each day with purpose and passion, with gratitude and grace. I would continue to fight for what was right and just, to stand up for the vulnerable and the oppressed, to be a voice for those who had been silenced or forgotten. And I would continue to love with an open heart and an open mind, to give of myself freely and without reservation, knowing that it was in giving that we truly received. For that was the legacy I wanted to leave behind, the mark I wanted to make on the world. Not a legacy of wealth or power or prestige, but a legacy of kindness and compassion, of hope and healing in a world that so desperately needed it. And so, as the sun began to set on another day, as the shadows lengthened and the stars began to shine, I sat back in my chair and smiled, my heart full of peace and contentment. I had lived a life that mattered, had fought the good fight, and emerged victorious on the other side. And no matter what challenges lay ahead, no matter what storms I might have to weather in the years to come, I knew that I would face them with courage and conviction, with the unshakable belief that love would always triumph in the end. For I was John Anderson, a teacher, a father, and a man of honor. And I would not be broken, not by betrayal, not by heartache, not by anything this world could throw at me. I would stand tall and proud, a beacon of hope and resilience in a world that so often seemed consumed by darkness and despair. And I would never, ever give up on the power of the human spirit to overcome, to endure, to rise above. For that was the true measure of a life well lived, the only legacy that really mattered in the end. And it was a legacy that I would cherish and protect, with every fiber of my being, until my last breath and beyond. The years passed in a blur of activity and purpose, a whirlwind of new experiences and fresh starts. I threw myself into my passions with a fervor and a dedication that I had never known before, pouring all of my energy and my expertise into the things that brought me joy and fulfillment. I traveled the world, exploring new places and cultures, learning and growing in ways that I had never thought possible. I hiked through the mountains of Peru and the forests of Japan, marveling at the beauty and the majesty of the natural world. I took up painting and photography, discovering a talent for capturing the essence and the emotion of the human experience. My work was featured in galleries and exhibitions around the globe, and I found myself surrounded by a community of artists and dreamers who shared my vision and my passion. But even as I reveled in this new chapter of my life, even as I felt the warmth and the joy of making a difference in the world, I couldn't shake the sense of longing that sometimes crept up on me in the quiet moments. The feeling that something was still missing from my life. I had my purpose and my passion, had the satisfaction of knowing that I was living life on my own terms and making the most of every moment. But I also knew that true happiness, the kind that filled your heart and soul with light, could only come from the love and the connection that we shared with others. And so, with a sense of trepidation and excitement, I began to open myself up to the possibility of new relationships, of finding someone to share my life with in the autumn of my years. I went on dates and attended social events, putting myself out there in a way that I hadn't done in decades. And slowly but surely, I began to find a connection with someone special, a spark of something real and meaningful that I hadn't felt in longer than I could remember. Her name was Elizabeth, and she was everything I had ever dreamed of in a partner. She was kind and compassionate, with a heart as big as the sky and a smile that could light up even the darkest of rooms. She was smart and funny, with a quick wit and a sharp mind that kept me on my toes and challenged me in all the best ways. And most of all, she understood me, understood the pain and the heartache that I had been through, the scars that I carried with me from my past. She accepted me for who I was, flaws and all, and loved me with a depth and a passion that I had never known before. As the months turned into years, Elizabeth and I grew closer and closer, building a life together that was filled with love and laughter, with joy and adventure, and all the things that made life worth living. We traveled the world together, exploring new places and trying new things, learning and growing in ways that neither of us had ever thought possible. And through it all, I felt a sense of peace and contentment that I had never known before, a deep and abiding happiness that filled every corner of my being. I had found my soulmate, my partner in every sense of the word, and I knew that I would cherish and protect our love with every fiber of my being. But even as I savored the sweetness of this new chapter in my life, I couldn't shake the feeling that there was still one more thing I needed to do. One more piece of unfinished business that I had to attend to. And that thing, I knew, was my relationship with Michael. It had been years since I had last seen my son. Years since the bitter confrontation that had torn our family apart. In all that time, I had never once reached out to him, had never once tried to mend the rift that had grown between us. I had told myself that it was for the best, that he had made his choices, and that I had to respect them, even if I couldn't understand or condone them. But deep down, I knew that it was more than that my own pride and stubbornness had played a role in keeping us apart. And now, as I looked back on my life, on the long and winding road that had brought me to this moment, I knew that I couldn't let things end like this, that I couldn't let my own son become a stranger to me, a ghost from my past that haunted my every waking moment. And so, with a heavy heart and a sense of trepidation, I picked up the phone and dialed Michael's number, my fingers trembling as I punched in the digits that I had once known by heart. The call went to voicemail, and for a moment, I almost lost my nerve, almost hung up the phone and walked away from the whole thing. But something stopped me, some deep and primal instinct that told me that this was a chance that I couldn't let slip away, a moment that would define the rest of my life. And so, taking a deep breath and steeling myself for whatever lay ahead, I left a message, my voice shaking with emotion as I spoke the words that I had been holding back for so long. "Michael," I said, my throat tight with tears, "it's your father. I know it's been a long time, and I know that things between us have been difficult, to say the least. But I want you to know that I'm sorry, that I never meant for things to turn out the way they did. I know that I can't change the past, can't undo the hurt and the anger that we've both carried with us for so long. But I want to try, Michael. I want to find a way to move forward, to build a new relationship based on love and understanding, not on bitterness and resentment. And so, if you're willing, if you're ready to take that first step, I'd like to meet with you, to talk things through and see if we can't find a way to heal all the wounds that have divided us for so long. I know it won't be easy, but I also know that it's worth it, that the love and the bond that we once shared is too precious to let slip away. Please, Michael, give me a chance to make things right, to be the father that you always deserved. I promise that I won't let you down, that I'll do everything in my power to earn your trust and your forgiveness. I love you, son. And no matter what happens, no matter where this road takes us, I want you to know that I always will. That's a promise that I'll keep, now and forever." And with that, I hung up the phone, my heart pounding with a mixture of fear and hope, of uncertainty and determination. I knew that the road ahead would be long and difficult, that there would be obstacles and challenges at every turn. But I also knew that it was a road that I had to travel, a journey that I had to take if I ever hoped to find the peace and the healing that I so desperately craved. And so, with a deep breath and a sense of purpose, I stepped out into the world, ready to face whatever lay ahead with courage and grace, with the strength and the wisdom of a man who had lived a life of purpose and meaning. For I was John Anderson, a teacher, a father, and a man of honor. And I would not rest until I had made things right, until I had built a new legacy of love and forgiveness that would endure long after I was gone. It has been 5 years since I made that fateful phone call to Michael. 5 years since I took the first step on the long and difficult road to reconciliation and healing. And as I sit here in the warmth and comfort of my home, surrounded by the love and laughter of my family, I can't help but reflect on the incredible journey that has brought us to this moment. It wasn't easy, of course. There were times when I thought that the wounds of the past were too deep to heal all, that the anger and the resentment that had divided us for so long were too powerful to overcome. But through it all, we persevered, holding fast to the love and the hope that had always been the foundation of our family. Slowly but surely, Michael and I began to rebuild our relationship, one conversation at a time, one shared memory at a time. We talked about the past and the future, about the mistakes we had made and the lessons we had learned. We laughed and we cried, we argued and we made up. We rediscovered the bond that had once been the bedrock of our lives. And as the years passed, as the wounds began to heal all and the scars began to fade, I watched with pride and amazement as Michael transformed before my very eyes. He left his toxic marriage and found a new path in life, one that was guided by integrity and compassion, by a desire to make a difference in the world. He started a non-profit organization that provided support and resources to families in need, using his own experiences as a cautionary tale and a source of inspiration. And as I watched him pour his heart and soul into this work, as I saw the lives he touched and the hope he brought to so many, I knew that I had never been more proud to call him my son. But Michael's journey was just one part of the tapestry that had become my life. Elizabeth and I continued to build our own love story, creating a partnership that was based on trust and respect, on a deep and abiding commitment to each other's happiness and well-being. We traveled the world together, exploring new places and cultures, learning and growing in ways that we never could have imagined. We volunteered our time and our resources to causes that mattered to us, using our talents and our passions to make a difference in the lives of others. And through it all, we cherished the moments of joy and beauty that life brought our way, the laughter and the love that filled our days with meaning and purpose. We knew that every moment was a gift, a precious treasure that we could never take for granted. And now, as I look back on the long and winding road that has brought us to this moment, I can't help but feel a sense of gratitude and wonder for the incredible journey that has been my life. I have known great sorrow and great joy, have faced challenges and triumphs that have tested me to my very limits. But through it all, I have remained true to myself, have held fast to the values and the principles that have always been my guiding light. I have learned that forgiveness is a choice, a daily practice that requires patience and compassion, both for ourselves and for those who have hurt us. I have learned that family is the most precious gift we are given, and that it is up to us to cherish and protect it with all that we have. And I have learned that love is the most powerful force in the universe, capable of healing even the deepest wounds and bridging even the widest divides. These are the lessons that I will carry with me always, the truths that will guide me through whatever challenges and adventures life may bring my way. And as I sit here, surrounded by the love and the light of those who mean everything to me, I know that I am truly blessed, that I have been given a second chance at happiness and fulfillment. For I am John Anderson, a teacher, a father, and a man of honor. I have faced the darkness and emerged stronger and wiser for the journey, have learned to find the beauty and the hope in even the most difficult of times. And as long as I have breath in my body and love in my heart, I will continue to live each day with purpose and passion, with gratitude and grace. I will continue to fight for what is right and just, to stand up for the vulnerable and the oppressed, to be a voice for those who have been silenced or forgotten. And I will continue to cherish the bonds of family and friendship that have sustained me through the years, the connections that have given my life meaning and purpose, that have filled my days with laughter and my heart with joy. For that is the legacy I want to leave behind, the mark I want to make on the world. Not a legacy of wealth or power or prestige, but a legacy of love and compassion, of forgiveness and understanding, of hope and healing in a world that so desperately needs it. And so, as the sun sets on another beautiful day, as the shadows lengthen and the stars begin to shine, I raise a glass to the journey that has brought us here, to the love and the laughter that have filled our lives with light. And I offer a prayer of thanks for the blessings that have been bestowed upon us, for the chance to live and love and make a difference in this world, for the opportunity to leave this place a little better than we found it. For that is the true meaning of success, the only legacy that really matters in the end. And it is a legacy that I will cherish and protect with every fiber of my being until my last breath and beyond. Thank you, my friends, for being a part of my story, for sharing in the joys and the sorrows, the triumphs and the struggles of this remarkable journey. And may the love and the light that have guided us thus far continue to shine brightly, illuminating the path ahead and bringing hope and healing to all who cross our path. For the best is yet to come, and the future is ours to shape. Let us go forth with courage and compassion, with open hearts and open minds, ready to embrace all that life has to offer. And let us never forget the power of love to transform even the darkest of times, to bring light and hope to even the most troubled of souls. For in the end, that is all that truly matters, and it is a truth that will endure long after we are gone. So here's to the next chapter, to the new adventures that await us all. May we greet each day with gratitude and grace, with the knowledge that every moment is a gift, and every life is a precious treasure. And may we always remember that, no matter what challenges we face or what obstacles we must overcome, we are never alone, and we are always loved. For that is the greatest blessing of all, and it is one that I will carry with me always, in this life and beyond. Thank you, dear friends, for being a part of my journey. And may the road ahead be filled with joy, with love, and with all the beauty and wonder that this incredible world has to offer. For the best is yet to come, and the future is ours to create. Together, let us make it a masterpiece. If John Anderson's story of resilience, forgiveness, and the power of love resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel for more inspiring tales of ordinary people overcoming extraordinary challenges. And don't forget to share your own stories and reflections in the comments below. We all have a unique journey to share, a lesson to impart, and a legacy to create. By opening our hearts and minds to one another, we foster a community of support, understanding, and growth. So let us continue to lift each other up, to celebrate the triumphs and comfort the sorrows, to be the light in the darkness for those who need it most. For in the end, we are all connected, and we all have the power to make a difference in this world. Thank you for being a part of our community, for sharing in the joys and the struggles, the laughter and the tears. And may you always remember that, no matter where your path may lead, you are never alone, and you are always loved. So go forth with courage and compassion, with a heart full of hope and a spirit ready to soar. The world is waiting for you, and the best is yet to come. Until next time, my friends, stay safe, stay strong, and never stop believing in the power of your dreams. For they are the seeds of a better tomorrow, and it is up to us to nurture them, to help them grow and flourish, until they bloom into a reality that is more beautiful than we ever could have imagined. Thank you, and may the light of love always guide your way.